Good afternoon and welcome to yet another episode of Mr. Long Island's Search for Truth and Beauty. Our guest this week is Ken Cerini from Cerini Associates. Ken, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And each week on Mr. Long Island's Search for Truth and Beauty, we discuss issues that are important to Long Island, the truth, and we also focus a spotlight on things that are great about living on Long Island, which is the beauty. And magically, you come under both. I mean, you're knowledgeable about what's going on in the region, and you're very forthright, so you like to talk about the issues, and you're very truthful, but you do so many great things for the region. There's a lot of beauty in there, and we're going to get to all that.
I appreciate that.
Honestly, Ken, to me, you personify what this show is all about, so it's a real pleasure for me to have you here today, and I'm very grateful for your time. I know how busy you are. But each week on Mr. Long Island Search for Truth and Beauty, the first thing we do is we talk about pizza.
Okay.
And the reason for that is Long Island is such a diverse region. 126 school districts, everybody's different from everybody else. The one thing every town on Long Island has in common is at least one good pizza place and even one really good pizza place. So we're compiling this really great database of great pizza places on Long Island.
You going to share it later?
We're going to share it. We're going to actually, it's a great idea. We should post it to the Daily Blue. We're going to do that. But where's your favorite pizza place? The criteria being, if you had friends coming in from out of town, where would you take them to show off Long Island?
Well, I could tell you if I could go back in time, when I was growing up, there was a place called the G in Melville, Huntington, Melville area, that made this fantastic pizza, which had a layer of onions, sauce, cheese, and then 3 types of sausage on top.
Wow.
When my dad would bring that home, it was like we would devour it. But now there's a place in Wisconsin called Sun-Dried Tomato. They make a really, really good white pizza with heavy on the garlic, which, me being Italian, though I don't look it, I love my garlic.
Okay. So where in Wisconsin is it?
It's in Wisconsin Plaza on Smithtown Boulevard.
Terrific. Yeah, so we'll add that to the list, and we'll see if we can get the time machine working. We go back in our way back machine, and
that'd be awesome.
Because that would be a nice pizza.
If you can figure out how to do that, let me know, because I would definitely go back in time for that.
That sounds amazing. You may pay for it the next day, but that sounds absolutely amazing.
It's worth it.
Let's talk about Ken Cerini, Cerini Associates. You're an accountant by profession, but there's so much more to it than that.
All the cool jobs were taken, so I had to do something, so I opted for accounting. So we are a accounting firm in Bohemia, New York.
Okay.
And we do pretty much everything, but what I do is I work principally with nonprofit organizations and special education providers and school districts. So I'm really focused more on the education and nonprofit component, and I try to stay abreast of what's happening in the nonprofit sector because I believe that the sector provides such a great benefit to everybody who lives and works on Long Island that if I can give back in my own little way and make nonprofits more effective, then I've done my little bit.
Now, how would you say make them more effective? How would you go about doing that? Do you make suggestions to them about how they can manage their money better? Or
I think what you're seeing in today's sector is the world is changing. I mean, the nonprofit sector is not what it used to be years ago. There's been a tremendous cutback in government funding. There's been a dramatic increase in the health and welfare type services that are needed here on Long Island. More and more people who in the past didn't need to tap into systems are now tapping into systems to get resources. So you're in an environment where you've got a greater demand for services with less government funding coming into play. On top of that, there's more competition for the donated dollar. Okay. So everybody who used to rely heavily on government funding is now looking for alternative ways to bring in money. A lot of them are moving towards fundraising, and to be honest, there's only so many golf outings or rubber chicken dinners you can go to. So you're in this situation now where nonprofits have to think differently, and they have to be more strategic in how they operate. So donors are getting much more sophisticated because there's many more organizations out there. So donors are looking for return on investment. So when you think about it and you say return on investment, it's a donation. But what's the social return on investment? When you invest in a company, you get a dividend. Okay. What dividend are you getting from investing in a nonprofit? And it doesn't necessarily mean dollars back, but it means what's the impact that my donation is having on the economy? What's the donation it's having on the community? What impact is the donation having? So I think nonprofits have to think more in terms of that. Nonprofits have to also look for ways to create sustainable revenue streams. And we're talking about revenue streams that, they don't have to recreate every year, but are going to be there year after year. And you're seeing a lot more of a movement towards social entrepreneurism or social enterprise, which is really trying to get nonprofits to think more business-oriented and businesses to think more socially responsible, and trying to partner the two and kind of blur the lines between the two of them.
You threw a lot out there.
Sorry about that.
No, we'll come back to all of it, but talking about the return on investment, because I think that's an important consideration. In the old days, you grab somebody's ear, you said, look, this would be a really good thing, and the guy cuts you a check and you're done.
In the old days, it was, give me a donation.
Right.
And again, in today's environment, the donor is still interested in supporting organizations, but there really has to be something in it for the donor.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just
I'm not
needs
saying it
to
is.
be more traceable or more trackable.
I mean, for the longest time, nonprofits were measured in terms of their effectiveness based upon a concept, an accounting concept, whether you look at the program service percentage, or what percentage of every dollar spent by the nonprofit organization is spent in a program service capacity. But just because I spend 85 cents on every dollar or 90 cents on every dollar on program doesn't make me an effective organization. It just means that either A, I'm very good at accounting for stuff, I'm creative in how I allocate costs, or something. It could mean you're effective, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. I think now it's much more important for nonprofit organizations to really start looking at the outcomes that they're producing, looking at how they leverage what they do. So to kind of give you an example, take an organization like Island Harvest.
Okay.
All right, so Island Harvest is they do food pantry, but they also do food rescue. So they'll go out to restaurants and stuff and rescue food and distribute it. They have a short window of time to distribute. They bring in somewhere around $2 million worth of cash each year.
Okay.
And with that $2 million worth of cash, they're able to leverage it and have a $14 to $15 million impact on Long Island. So, would you rather give to an organization that has a 7-to-1 leverage in terms of what they do, or an organization that you're giving $200,000, they're providing $200,000 benefit?
Right.
So you really want that leverage, you want the impact, and I think those organizations that can exhibit that level of impact on the community that they serve, or the ability to change people's lives for the better, to take people who are not productive and make them productive members of society. Those are the organizations that I think people want to support more.
So there's a higher level of sophistication in terms of just getting the money out. They're not just going to hand you it anymore and say, good luck with this, see you next year.
Some do, but I think...
But that's the way the industry is trending.
I think what you're finding is that just so much more information out there in the marketplace. People can do much more higher levels of research today than ever before because of the internet, that the internet has really kind of made it so that organizations really need to be able to tell their story, and tell their story effectively, because if you can't tell your story effectively in everything that you put out, whether it be your tax return or on your internet, your website, or wherever, if you can't tell your story effectively, then why should anybody give to you?
And imagine, too, there's more, let's say a company X contributes to, we'll say, Island Harvest. They want to feel a part of that, and they want to be able to have a very positive association, maybe get their employees involved. So
you're seeing a lot more of that. You're seeing organizations really trying to kind of build a kind of team environment with their staff.
Right.
And I kind of look at it and I call it volunteeming.
Okay.
Instead of volunteering, it's volunteering.
Sure.
It's trying to bring your staff together in order to effectively kind of make them feel better about the organization they work for, because the organization is socially responsible. And that's, again, the other side of social enterprise. It's getting the organizations, the for-profits, to do more in terms of being socially responsible, triple bottom line, people, planet, and profit, as opposed to just kind of worrying about profit. And it's about bringing the two sectors, as I said before, and trying to get them to partner more effectively.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit, because you mentioned it a couple of times now, and I think it's a fascinating concept. And you're the president of the Long Island chapter of the Social Enterprise Alliance.
That's correct.
SEA,
Long Island, yeah.
longisland.org. What is a social enterprise? What are the benefits? What does it make it different? Like if I'm starting up a company and I want to manufacture something or produce something, why would I want to be a social enterprise versus just a regular?
Okay, so a social enterprise is an organization that has built into its DNA some social aspects. So again, going back to people, planet, and profit. So obviously all businesses are looking to generate a profit, but you also want to then provide some either environmental or social benefit in addition to that. So that's kind of the concept of social enterprise from a business perspective. And why would a business want to do it? I mean, just think about the whole concept of Occupy Wall Street and the big issues that were there. You know, the whole Gordon Gekko greed is good concept, which kind of lived in the past. In today's workforce, especially the younger generation that's coming into the workforce now, they really want to be involved in an organization that's trying to make a difference. So if you can show that you're trying to make a difference, A, you're going to get your staff to be married to the organization much stronger. B, you get that message out to your vendors and your customers. Customers would much rather, if your quality and your price is roughly the same as somebody else's, but you have that extra social component to your business where money is being, or goods are being donated to an organization based on what you're doing, or you're working closely. I mean, take Ben and Jerry's.
Okay.
You know, Ben and Jerry's, their fudge brownie ice cream, all of the brownies that are put in the fudge brownie ice cream are all made by Grayston Bakery in I think it's Brooklyn.
Okay.
Which is a nonprofit organization. Okay. You know, so if you know that if you buy a product that's benefiting social issues, you're much more likely to buy it if it's the same price and same quality as something else.
Well, you're generating more goodwill, and you touched on something I think is really important, particularly with the next generation of workers and leaders. The employees really want to be a part of something that makes them feel good. They just don't want a job. They want to be associated with something that's doing good for a region.
I think that comes from, I can tell you with my kids, going through school, there was a lot more emphasis on community involvement.
Right.
So I think that's kind of built into the youth of today in terms of the individuals getting into the workforce more than it was built into us as we were growing up. So they're much more in tune with that whole community and being part of a community. There's been a big emphasis more on buying community-based foods and kind of connecting to the local community that you live and work in. So I think that connection is much more here today now. Even though we have the internet and the world has gotten much smaller, I think we've gotten a lot more community-based in terms of how we do things.
It also engenders employee loyalty, which, that factor has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. When I graduated from school in the early 80s, your goal was to get a job at a good company because you're going to be with them the rest of your life. Now you're lucky if you're anywhere for a couple of years or more. So
actually, I was talking to my daughter today, and she said that they're telling her in school that if she doesn't have some sort of growth pattern after a year, she should look for something else.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're talking that window has even shrunk even more.
And it's kind of ironic because, when you were talking about the kind of company you were describing, where there was a social consciousness and involvement in the local community, everything old is new again. I mean, that's what Grumman, who at one point, Long Island was a company town, that's what Grumman was known for. And the people who worked there absolutely loved working there. So it'd be kind of interesting to see, the more things change, the more they stay the same, if you kind of came back to that.
And it makes a lot of sense. It's the direction. I think it's the direction. Long Island is a little behind the times than some of the other places within the country in terms of social entrepreneurism. But I think Long Island, with the education and the students that are coming out, if we can just push some of that into the schools and teach that as part of the master's programs, I think Long Island could really be a leader in the whole social enterprise arena going forward.
Well, and you and I have had many discussions about Links, the Association for Young Professionals, that you've played an instrumental role in helping me get launched. And talking to those young professionals, that's very important to them. That's come up several times, is they just don't want a job. They want something they can really feel good about. And even the Daily Blue, Corinne Caro, who runs this program, is very socially conscious, and they're having a blast. And the people love working here.
Again, I think it's the direction. And I think part of what we need to do, and part of what we try to do as a firm, is we try to push good examples of nonprofits that do the right things, that really are on the cutting edge of the sector out there, and let people know. We do something called the Imagine Awards, which is an awards program for the nonprofit sector. And really, the purpose of the Imagine Awards is really to get the message out in terms of organizations that are very innovative, organizations that are have strong social enterprise, organizations with strong leadership, organizations that are socially responsible and have great outcomes. So we've created this awards program really to push the nonprofit sector and show these are the organizations in the nonprofit sector that really should be emulated. And we do a big awards program every May.
And you do that in May. Okay, next one, obviously, next year in May.
May of 2015, yeah.
Yeah, and what you're really trying to do is go the other not-for-profits to kind of look at what works and what's been tried and say, hey, you know, I can do that, maybe I can do something different.
I think it does several things. First of all, it spotlights those organizations that really get it.
Right.
And are making a difference. So it spotlights them from a peer-to-peer perspective, so hopefully other nonprofits will come into the room, they'll see what's going on, they'll say, hey, wow, that's an interesting concept. I never really thought of it doing things that way, or hey, wow. And they'll get involved in some of that stuff. The other thing we're hoping to do is getting businesses into the room so businesses can see what the nonprofit sector is doing, again, to try to promote that partnering between the for-profit and nonprofit sectors, because there is a lot of really interesting stuff that's happening in the sector which most people don't think about. Take an organization like FEGS.
Okay.
FEGS is a big health and welfare type organization here on the island, and they have operations in the city. They have two businesses. They have All Sector Technology and Dynamic HR.
Okay.
Those two businesses are both for-profits that are part of FEGS, and those two businesses generate over $25 million a year in total gross revenue.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't think of nonprofit organizations out there doing this stuff, but they are. And they're in a situation where they're talking within the next 10 years of really start to weaning themselves off of some of the federal funding or government funding that they're getting, and they're looking hopefully for their social enterprises to account for about 40% of their revenue.
Wow.
You know, so when you have an organization that's generating over $120 million a year in revenue, and they're going to rely so heavily upon, you know, something that they're doing and are able to wean off government funding, you know, that's really the future of the sector and the future of what the sector should be looking to do.
And it's kind of interesting. Years ago, I worked for a fella who became the president of the Valley Stream Chamber of Commerce. And he was driving through Lynbrook, which is the next town over, and he saw that Lynbrook had holiday banners on the utility poles. So he came to me, he said, I want to put holiday banners on our utility poles. How do we do it? I don't know. And so he said, well, contact the Lynbrook Chamber of Commerce guy. And this was all pre-internet. And I went through, it took me like a half a day to find out who So we ended up getting involved in something called the Nassau Council of Chambers of Commerce, which was all the chamber presidents getting together once a month to just discuss issues. My point is, when you bring all these people together, like you do with the Imagine Awards, which I think is terrific, and you bring, now all of a sudden you get all these ideas, and you're seeing how somebody else is solving a problem or a challenge, or maybe, like you said, a whole different way of approaching something, then you get more and more creativity, and I think that's terrific.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in peer-to-peer learning. And, you know, I guess that comes from, as I said before, I do a lot in the education and special education, and you know, one of the areas of special education is bringing typically functioning and developmentally disabled kids together in the same room so that you get that peer-to-peer learning. And I think that works also in the nonprofit sector anywhere you go. I mean, I think you can definitely always learn from, you know, other people, and kind of makes you more effective in what you do, because one little idea that somebody else has could spark something tremendous in you.
And historically, Long Island, you know, we all kind of work in these little silos and fiefdoms, and the intermingling has never been great. So what you're trying to do, I think what you do a terrific job with Cerini Associates and the Imagine Awards and the Social Enterprise Alliance, you kind of bring the people together in a room and just swap ideas and creativity. And, well, how'd you handle this challenge?
Yeah. And again, I think it's extremely important. I mean, I think you have to do that in today's environment, because things are so much more competitive than ever before, and you have to differentiate yourself. Everybody says they're different,
right?
But it's really just the same stuff, just packaged differently. You really have to be different.
And the irony is, the more different you are, the more excitement you can have, the more likely you
are.
The
more fun. Yeah. Honestly, the more fun it is.
You know, I remember somebody said, you know, it's like throwing a party. You know, the hard part is getting the first couple of people to agree to go, but then you get status of you got to be there. And I think as a not-for-profit, you kind of want to be that cool not-for-profit. You know, and some people are very good at it. Randy over at Island Harvest is phenomenal at it. Others, like you said, have some catching
Yeah, I mean,
up to do.
I think there's too many organizations that still have that traditional way of thinking.
Right.
And if we can just get a few of those organizations to change the way they're thinking and kind of think more business-oriented, entrepreneurial, I think we've done our job. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish.
And if they don't change, they're going to get left behind.
Yeah, they are. And you're seeing the level of mergers that are taking place in the nonprofit sector, the ones that are having fiscal difficulty and being either going out of business or being gobbled up. It's just going to get faster, and it's just going to happen more often.
So there's lots of changes, but the good news is the next generation of Long Islanders really want to get involved. The business community wants to get involved, but they're just going to be a little more, I don't know if demanding is the right word, or critical of what they get.
It's just changing the way we do business on Long Island is really what it comes down to. And I think we have all the tools in place to do it. It's just a matter of just putting it in play.
Terrific. And any not-for-profit that wants to learn more or maybe find out more about what Cerini Associates has to offer, they can contact you.
They can contact me. They can either call me at 631-582-1600. My extension is 203. Or they can reach out to me via email, Cerini, Cerini, at CeriniAssociates.com, or just come to our website.
That's terrific. And you've been very helpful to Links. I'm very grateful. You're really an asset to the community, and
I appreciate that.
It's tremendous that you're here. I know how busy you are, and
I just try to do my little bit, and that's it.
Well, you do a lot more than that, and you take the coolest vacations of anybody I've ever met. Where were you the last time? You were
last trip was Alaska. Spent 9 days on the Ruth Glacier, climbing ice flows and snowbanks. So.
And in a true Cerini fashion, it was a fundraiser, correct?
Yes, it was.
That's beautiful. That's great. Ken, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
This has been yet another episode of Mr. Long Island's Search for Truth and Beauty, and today we got a little of both, so thank you, Ken. And thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Watt, a.k.a. Mr. Long Island, and we'll see you next week.